In the Field updates on Market Journal are supported by the Nebraska Corn Board. USDA reported earlier this week that about 60% of Nebraska's winter wheat crop had been planted. That pacing is ahead of the average for this time of year, which is just around 50%. One extension expert is warning that grasshoppers could be an issue for wheat producers as we head into the fall months. Grasshopper populations have been high this year. Large grasshopper outbreaks generally happen in cycles, and this year was definitely one of those years. While grasshopper populations tend to decline through the late summer and fall, they can remain in significant densities until after the first hard freeze. That's why it's a good idea for wheat growers to monitor those grasshopper densities in areas surrounding wheat fields both before and after planting.
We had, in a lot of areas, we had relatively mild winters. Most of our grasshoppers, annual grasshoppers in Nebraska, overwinter as eggs in the soil. So they're protected anyway from temperatures, but we had generally mild winters in a lot of areas. Some years, if it's cold and wet as the grasshoppers hatch out, that can kill them. We didn't have that this year. So basically weather factors was the main issue that we had a lot of grasshoppers, and they go in cycles. Sometimes you get 2 or 3 bad years, and then also there's some diseases and beneficial insects that can build up and attack them and reduce the numbers, but we haven't had that recently. So they go in cycles, and we're in the up cycle. Weather influences that too.
Winter wheat seedlings can be quite delicate, and minimal feeding by grasshoppers early in the growth cycle could have detrimental impacts on yield potential for your wheat crop.
Particularly if you're planting wheat or alfalfa this fall, we have grasshoppers in a lot of areas. So scout the area, the field where you're going to plant. If you have a lot of grasshoppers in the field borders or you have a pasture nearby, you want to be concerned about grasshoppers because they're pretty large right now, and 1 or 2 bites on a seedling wheat or alfalfa field plant is going to kill it. So you want to be aware that whether you have grasshoppers, one approach would be to try to control grasshoppers, maybe in brome grass borders, or if you have a pasture nearby, you can try to kill them before you plant or before the next crop emerges. Another thing we recommend in winter wheat is, again, if you have a lot of grasshoppers or you have a history of grasshopper problems, maybe field the field border a little heavier so you can withstand a little damage. Also, there are some insecticidal seed treatments that could be used, maybe just on the field border to reduce the expense, to try to reduce the damage from grasshoppers. So grasshoppers are going to be around probably all of September. Once we have a good hard freeze, that'll kill them off, but there's a lot of time now that they could still damage new crops if you're planting this fall, so that's something to watch for.
While insecticides are still an option for controlling grasshopper populations, there may not be enough biomass in the plants for that method of control to be particularly an effective solution.
The other issue is you can try to use foliar insecticides to control grasshoppers in the new wheat or alfalfa. The problem is you don't have much leaves above ground to intercept the insecticide. The insecticide that hits the ground, bare ground, isn't going to affect grasshoppers. It needs to be on the plant. So it's relatively hard to kill them with foliar insecticides with very small plants. So you can try to spray with insecticides, but it's often not very effective. The other issue is this time of year grasshoppers are very large, and larger grasshoppers take a larger dose of insecticide to kill them. So it's something to be aware of. Again, if you can try to reduce the grasshopper populations nearby before you plant or before the new seedlings emerge, that's probably the best option. The other thing, at least to some extent, maybe delay planting a little bit. You know, with wheat, we don't want to plant real early anyway because of potential of Hessian fly and other insects. Same thing with alfalfa. If you have other insects in the area, maybe delay a little bit. Don't want to delay too long because we need some warmth for them to hatch, to germinate and start growing, but don't plant too early because you're going to have grasshoppers in some areas that are going to damage the emerging seedlings.
If you'd like more information on early winter wheat development or grasshopper control methods, you're always encouraged to reach out to your local county extension office.